Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over some of my favorite plays for tonight's 11-game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings. Before we continue though, if you guys could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, really appreciate it. You also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and if you're interested in the spreadsheets about every single night for the NBA season, links available in the description below for my Patreon. I do projections, values, it's all color coded. I do a cheat sheet, the defense versus position chart. I also recently made a Discord chat where you can come in and hang out and ask questions or just talk about the games throughout the day. And without further ado, I say we get right into the video. So, like always, you can always play Giannis, you can always play LeBron. The Spurs suck versus point guards. But I like Karl-Anthony Towns here at 10,400, and it's as simple as this. If I see Cat on the slate, I typically play him. The guy's been great this year. For the most part, he's been very consistent, and he's never the most expensive guy on the slate. And we have the highest total on the slate at 235.5, and we have a 120-point team total for the Timberwolves here, which is highest on the slate last time I looked. And this is going to be a fast-paced game. Minnesota is first in pace of play, and Atlanta is 10th, and there's not going to be a whole lot of defense going on here. Atlanta is dead last in defense for fantasy purposes, and they are 22nd versus centers. Towns is getting about 35 minutes per game and 1.6 points per minute with a 28% usage rate. Karl-Anthony Towns, you got to love him here. He's got 60-point upside every time he hits the court. Atlanta sucks on defense. He should be able to smash here, and he would be my preferred spend up on this slate, so I definitely like Cat. More of a GPP option, you could run it back, and it's like you could run it back in a game stack. Trae Young at 9,800. Now, I'm not typically one to play him, and I haven't played him yet this year, which I know he's done great, but he's never really that high-owned in cash games, so it really doesn't matter too much. But this may be the game I target him if I'm playing GPPs. He's on this other side of this game from Towns, and this should be a great game for fantasy purposes. We have two fast-paced teams, and it's the highest over-under of the slate. And Young is coming off a 30-point triple-double where he scored 64.5 fantasy points. He's getting about 34 minutes per game, nearly 1.4 points per minute, and a 33.4% usage rate. And this is a good matchup as well. Minnesota is 21st versus point guards this season. And like I said, he's more of a GPP option than cash, but the guy can get hot and he can get over 60 fantasy points. He's not the most consistent player in the world. He will get some clunkers, but if he's not hitting, but I do think Trae Young is a fantastic GPP option today and should go a little bit under the radar. Then Anthony Davis, another guy that I think is pretty decent for GPPs. He's only 9,700, and anytime AD has a 4-digit price tag, he will definitely be on my radar. It's just too cheap for someone like him. He can break a slate wide open, and I don't expect him to have too much ownership tonight because I do think there's some more obvious plays at his position. So I definitely think he'll go lower owned, and a lower owned Anthony Davis always sounds pretty enticing to me. He's got a 1.43 points per minute on the year and a 30% usage rate. And the Spurs are worse versus guards than they are versus big men. But, Anthony Davis, no one can really stop him. It just depends on how he's doing that game. It's really up to him if he wants to get a whole bunch of points or not. So I do think Anthony Davis is a fine GPP play. Only 9,700, so it seems a little bit too cheap. And I wouldn't mind taking a stab at him. Probably won't get there in cash games, but I do think he is a solid GPP play. Joel Embiid's really cheap. I just don't love using guys versus Toronto, and I do prefer paying up for Cat and then another cheaper center that I'll talk about in a little bit. But I understand if you're going to play Embiid at that cheaper price tag. Andre Drummond going up against a Vucevic-less Orlando team, that might make some sense, but Blake Griffin really caps his upside. So let's talk about Sabonis here. I like playing Sabonis, and I think he's just a very good player. It's not really an opinion. That's just a fact. He's a very good player. He seems a bit cheap here. 8,100 still a little cheap for Sabonis, even with Miles Turner being back. His double-double run came to an end last game with being one rebound short, but he's been great. I mean, before that, double-double, double-double, another one, and then it stopped versus Brooklyn. But he still had 48 fantasy points in that game as well. And Sabonis has been ultra consistent. He does not flop. I mean, the guy doesn't flop. He's a very good, consistent player. So I always feel safe with him in cash games because you know what you're going to get with him. You're going to get pretty much 40 points with upside of 50. And you're always going to get your double-double on most nights. And he's been about 1.24 points per minute on the year with a 24.8% usage rate. And this is a pace-up spot for Indianapolis here. Memphis is 6th in pace of play, while Indy is 25th. And Memphis is a bottom 3 team in defense this year, and they are 21st versus power forwards and centers. So Sabonis here, I think he's an excellent play. He's got 50-point upside, but I do think he should get you 40 points. And if you want to pay 8,100 for him, I definitely think that's fine. So Sabonis is definitely on my radar as of right now versus a Memphis team who I really don't have much respect for on the defensive side of things. Spencer Dinwiddie, no Kyrie Irving again or Karis LeVert, so we have to have interest in Spencer Dinwiddie. The guy's been chalk the past 4 nights. And just another no slate with Kyrie, so past 4 games without him, 42, 36, 41, 50. Not too bad at all. I know the price has gotten up there a little bit, but he's still been getting, I think he's going to get you over 40 fantasy points, which you'll take at 7,600. Like I said, I like Sabonis, and I think he's going to be around the 40-point range. So I got to like Spencer Dinwiddie if I think he's going to get around 40 points at a cheaper price tag. And this is also a great matchup versus Cleveland, who is bottom 6 in defense and 23rd versus point guards. And he's been a usage monster. He's had a usage rate of over 30%, which I think I already talked about that. But I know it feels a little bit pricey, but he's been very consistent. So Spencer Dinwiddie, definitely like him tonight in the guard slot, and it's only 7,600. I know it feels a little expensive for him, but the guy's been great and going up against Cleveland. So gotta like Spencer Dinwiddie here. And another guy, I think he's way too cheap tonight. Bam Adebayo at 7,100. This seems like a mispricing here. So he's usually in that 8K range. 7,400 last game versus Philly. He flopped. It's a tougher matchup. Only got 18 fantasy points in a blowout. But this time he's going up against Charlotte, and they are one of the worst teams versus centers. They're 28th versus centers this season, and he just typically gets over 30 minutes per game and is nearly 1.2 points per minute. So he's definitely going to grade out well in projections, and we know the guy's got upside. He's had 2 50-point games in the last 4 games. That's just his upside on every single night. You know, he's more than likely going to get you a double-double. So I think Bam Adebayo, I think he's a fine play here. We've seen big games from him. He's usually in that 30-point range to 40-point range with upside of 50. So versus Charlotte, you got to definitely have Bam on your radar at only 7,100. He will grade out well in projections, and he's supposed to have some ownership as of right now. Obviously, things can change throughout the day, but I do think Bam is a pretty solid play as of right now. Jason Tatum with no Kemba Walker definitely opens up some usage and minutes on the court. I never really liked playing Tatum. But with Kemba out, he's definitely in play. With Hayward and Walker off the court this year, Tatum gets a 7.6% bump in usage and a 0.12 points per minute bump. So definitely Jason Tatum's got to be on your radar here at 6,900. More recently versus the Clippers, he had played 41 minutes and got 51 fantasy points, 47 points versus Phoenix. And, you know, he's going to get mid-30s minutes tonight, especially with no Kemba Walker, just more usage and minutes to go around on the court. Sacramento is also 25th versus small forward, so it's a good matchup for him individually. So Jason Tatum, I do have interest at 6,900. Just with no Kemba Walker, it opens up some minutes on the court and some usage, which Tatum is the biggest benefactor with no Gordon Hayward and Kemba Walker on the court this season. So you definitely have to have interest in him. Jaylen Brown, another guy that should benefit. I'm not going to talk about all the Celtics because they're all going to get some bumps here. So Jaylen Brown, you can play him if you want. Tristan Thompson at 6,800. Kevin Love is questionable as of right now, and if he doesn't play, you gotta love Tristan Thompson here. With no Love, Thompson usage rate spikes over 9% on the court this season, and he had a really good game last out versus Portland in a really good matchup where he saw 36 minutes, and this is without Kevin Love, and he had 42 fantasy points. He was a lot cheaper, so 6,800. The price is getting out there, kind of like with Spencer Dinwiddie, so they are factoring in that Kevin Love might miss. But 6,800, I still think it's a pretty decent price for him because I do think he can get you over 40 fantasy points. And this is a pace-up spot for the Cavs here. Brooklyn is top 3 in pace of play, and they are 25th versus centers. They are awful down low. So Tristan Thompson is definitely on my radar as long as Kevin Love misses. If Kevin Love is in, probably not going to pay 6,800 for Tristan Thompson. And scrolling down a bit here, there's a guy I really like today, and it's Hassan Whiteside at 6,100. So I'm thinking I might just go Hassan Whiteside and Karl Anthony Towns tonight, just double center it because I love this spot for Hassan Whiteside. I think he's an amazing play today, and he is considered probable, so should be good to go. And Chicago is just awful down low. They are 30th versus centers, or 30th versus power forwards and 29th versus centers. They are one of the worst rebounding teams in the league. Now, Whiteside doesn't usually play huge minutes. We've seen him do it before where he had 35 minutes versus San Antonio, but he's typically averaging about 30 minutes per game, a little less than that. But he is efficient while on the court. 1.23 points per minute and a 20% usage rate. Currently have him for about 30 minutes tonight, so he should smash value at this price. He's going to grade out as one of the top value plays on the slate. I do expect him to be high owned as well, and I think Hassan Whiteside can easily get 40 fantasy points tonight. So definitely like Whiteside at this price tag of 6,100. It's the cheapest we've seen him in a while. And just scrolling down, Marcus Smart. Obviously, he's going to get some more minutes, so he's in play as well. I'm not going to talk about all the Celtics, although I do want to talk about one Celtic who I definitely think is one of the top value plays on the slate. I believe he's 4,300. Yeah, Brad Wanamaker at 4,300. So As of right now, he's the top value play on the slate currently with no Kemba Walker. Not like he hasn't played either. It's not like it's not like he hasn't played yet this season. He's not, so he's played and he's been okay. He's been about 0.9 points per minute, but he's definitely going to get more minutes in this game. I expect him to push for about 30 minutes. So honestly, I think a 27 to 30 point projection is very fair for him, and I do expect him to be pretty popular tonight. And like I said, he's played. It's not like he just hasn't played and he's going to get a spot in the rotation now. He had 22 points last game versus Denver, 26 versus the Clippers, 26 versus Phoenix, 18 versus Sacramento. Should get about 30 minutes tonight. I do expect him to be in that 25 to 30 point fantasy point range, and only 4,300. Definitely got to have interest here. So Brad Wanamaker is my top value play of the slate at this moment. Then one more value play for you guys as of right now. Obviously, things can change throughout the day, but Willie Cauley-Stein comes in at 4,600. And it's just a good matchup down low versus OKC. They are 24th versus centers. I currently have Stein for around 25 or so minutes tonight, and he's been about a point per minute guy. So he is grading out as a good value as of right now. Draymond Green misses. Definitely get a bump. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I know he's dealing with a heel issue, and he's questionable as of right now. So you'll have to see. But I do have interest in Willie Cauley-Stein because, he's a pretty decent point per minute guy for given his price tag. So definitely keep an eye out for him. And I think that's going to be it for this video. Obviously, some more value can open up throughout the day. And I don't talk about every single player, so I do have interest in some other players, but just some slightly less interest in the guys I talked about. And anyway, if you guys want my updated information, it's on my spreadsheets. I update it up until lock. Links in the description below for my Patreon. You can hit me up in Discord as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video, and I wish you guys the best of luck.